Stop changing your motorcycle oil every 3,000 miles. You're wasting hundreds of dollars every single year on unnecessary oil changes that modern bikes don't actually need. I know what you're thinking. 3,000 miles is the safe interval. It's what everyone recommends. It's what I've always done. What's wrong with that? Everything. That's what's wrong. I've been riding motorcycles for 17 years. I've owned 8 different bikes, and for all that time, I religiously changed my oil every 3,000 miles, like clockwork. That's what every mechanic told me to do. That's what I thought was protecting my engine. But I started noticing something. My oil still looked pretty clean at 3,000 miles. It didn't smell burnt. It didn't feel gritty, so I started asking questions. Why 3,000 miles? Where does that number come from? And every mechanic gave me the same answer. That's just what you do. It's always been 3,000 miles. That's how you protect your engine. But nobody could explain why. Nobody had actual data. It was just accepted, wisdom passed down like gospel. So I decided to do something most riders never do. I decided to test it myself. I spent $1,200 sending oil samples to a professional laboratory at different intervals to find out the truth. And what I discovered made me realize I've been wasting money for 17 years. Let me show you exactly what those lab reports revealed. I have a 2021 Yamaha MT-09 with 14,000 miles on it. I run full synthetic Motul 7 100. The owner's manual says change oil every 6,000 miles. But every mechanic and shop I talked to said, no, do it every 3,000. So here's what I did. I changed my oil with fresh Motul and started tracking everything. At 3,000 miles, I pulled a sample and sent it to Blackstone Labs. This is a professional oil analysis company that tests oil for metals, viscosity, contamination, and breakdown. They sent back a full report with every measurement. The report showed my oil at 3,000 miles was in excellent condition. Total base number, which measures the oil's ability to neutralize acids, was still at 8.2. Fresh oil starts around 9. Wear metals like iron, chromium, and aluminum were all well within normal limits. Viscosity was perfect. The lab's recommendation? This oil has plenty of life left. No need to change yet. I paid $60 for that test. I kept riding. At 5,000 miles, I pulled another sample. Same process. Same lab. The results? Still excellent. Total base number dropped slightly to 7.8, but that's still great. Wear metals increased slightly, but remained well within acceptable ranges. Viscosity still on spec. Lab recommendation? Oil is performing well. Continue monitoring. Another $60. At 7,000 miles, I sent another sample. This is past the manual's recommended interval. Mechanics would be horrified. The results shocked me. Oil was still in good condition. Total base number at 7.1. Wear metals slightly elevated, but nothing concerning. The lab noted the oil was doing its job protecting the engine. They said I could safely go another 1,000 miles. I kept pushing. At 10,000 miles, I pulled what I thought would be the disaster sample. This oil had gone more than 3 times the mechanic recommended interval. Surely it would be destroyed, right? Wrong. The lab report showed the oil was still functional. Total base number had dropped to 6.3. Wear metals were higher, but still within acceptable limits for synthetic oil. The lab said the oil was nearing the end of its service life and should be changed soon, but there was no evidence of engine damage or excessive wear. I sent one final sample at 12,000 miles. This was double the manual interval and 4 times what mechanics recommend. At this point, the oil was definitely done. Total base number dropped to 5.1. Wear metals were elevated. Viscosity had thinned slightly. The lab strongly recommended an oil change. But here's the critical part. Even at 12,000 miles, there was no catastrophic wear, no bearing material, no evidence of engine damage. The oil had simply reached the end of its useful life. I changed the oil, and the engine runs perfectly. No issues. No damage. No problems whatsoever. So let me break down what I learned from spending $1,200 on lab tests. Modern full synthetic motorcycle oil is good for at least 7,000 miles in normal riding conditions. At 3,000 miles, the oil is barely broken in. It's still performing like new. Changing it at 3,000 miles is throwing away perfectly good oil. At 5,000 miles, synthetic oil is in its prime. All additives are still active. Protection is excellent. This is nowhere near needing a change. At 7,000 miles, synthetic oil is still doing its job. It's starting to accumulate wear metals and combustion byproducts, but it's far from dangerous. This is a reasonable change interval for most riders. At 10,000 miles, you're pushing it. The oil is still protecting, but it's getting tired. For aggressive riders or harsh conditions, this is too long. For gentle highway riding, it's manageable but not ideal. At 12,000 miles, you've definitely gone too far. The oil is depleted, it needs to be changed. But even at this extreme interval, modern synthetic oil prevented engine damage. That's how good this stuff really is. So why do mechanics tell you 3,000 miles? Because it makes them money. Think about it. If you ride 8,000 miles per year and change oil every 3,000 miles, that's 3 oil changes annually. At $80 per change, that's $240 per year. But if you change every 7,000 miles like the lab data supports, you only need 1 oil change per year. Maybe 2 if you ride a lot. That's $80 to $160 per year instead of $240. The mechanic just lost $80 to $160 of annual revenue from you. Multiply that across 100 customers and they're losing $8,000 to $16,000 per year. Now you understand why they push 3,000-mile intervals. It's not about your engine, it's about their bottom line. But here's what's important. My testing was on my bike with my oil in my riding conditions. Your situation might be different. If you do a lot of short trips where the engine never fully warms up, oil breaks down faster. If you ride aggressively with high RPMs and hard acceleration, oil degrades quicker. If you ride in extreme heat or extreme cold, oil life decreases. If you use conventional oil instead of synthetic, you need more frequent changes. Synthetic oil lasts 2 to 3 times longer than conventional. If your bike has a wet clutch that shares engine oil, that adds friction and heat that can break down oil faster. So here's my recommendation based on actual lab data, not mechanic marketing. If you run full synthetic oil in a modern motorcycle with normal riding, change your oil every 6,000 to 7,000 miles. This is supported by lab testing and matches what most owners' manuals recommend. If you ride aggressively, do track days, or ride in extreme conditions, change every 5,000 miles. The extra stress breaks down oil faster. If you do lots of short trips or cold starts where the engine never reaches full operating temperature, change every 4,000 to 5,000 miles. If you use conventional oil, change every 3,000 miles. Conventional oil really does need more frequent changes. If your bike is older with high mileage or has engine issues, stick to shorter intervals. Compromise engines need more frequent fresh oil. But here's the critical part. Don't just blindly follow intervals. Send your oil to a lab. Blackstone Labs charges $60 for a complete analysis. Do it once at your normal change interval to see where your oil actually stands. The lab will tell you if you're changing too early or pushing too long. It takes the guesswork out completely. One $60 test can save you hundreds over the years by optimizing your actual change interval instead of following generic advice. I spent $1,200 on testing, so you don't have to, but spending $60 once on your specific bike is worth it to know the truth. Now let me address what mechanics will say about this video. They'll tell you I'm risking engine damage. They'll say modern engines are more sensitive and need frequent changes. They'll claim the lab testing doesn't account for real-world conditions. They'll insist 3,000 miles is playing it safe. Here's the truth. Modern engines are better than ever, not more sensitive. Tolerances are tighter. Materials are stronger. Oil technology has improved dramatically. Modern synthetic oil is so advanced that it outlasts the old maintenance intervals by huge margins. The 3,000-mile interval comes from 1970s technology, when conventional oil was the only option and engines had loose tolerances. We're not in the 1970s anymore. Your owner's manual is written by engineers who designed your engine. They know exactly what it needs. If your manual says 6,000 miles, trust that over a mechanic who profits from more frequent service. The lab testing I did represents real-world conditions. That oil went through cold starts, highway cruising, city traffic, hot days, and cold days. It saw everything normal riding throws at it. The data is real. And yes, 3,000 miles is playing it safe. It's playing it so safe that you're wasting money on unnecessary oil changes. There's a difference between being cautious and being wasteful. Look, I'm not trying to put mechanics out of business. Good mechanics provide valuable service. But the 3,000 mile oil change interval is outdated and profit-driven. It made sense 50 years ago. It doesn't make sense today with modern synthetic oil. My $1,200 in lab testing proved that. Your oil is probably good for at least twice as long as your mechanic tells you. Maybe 3 times as long if you use quality synthetic and ride normally. Stop wasting money on unnecessary oil changes. Check your owner's manual. Use quality synthetic oil. Consider getting one lab analysis to confirm your actual oil life. And don't let mechanics guilt you into 3,000 mile changes when your oil has thousands of miles of life left. If this video just saved you from wasting $160 per year on unnecessary oil changes, hit that subscribe button. I'll keep testing the conventional wisdom of motorcycle maintenance and showing you what actually matters versus what's just profitable for shops. Because modern synthetic oil is incredible technology that lasts way longer than anyone in the service department wants to admit. Thanks for watching.